In August 1996, a quiet Midwestern community was shattered by an unspeakable mystery. 11-year-old Trudy Appleby vanished from her home without a trace. Decades later, that question still echoes through the Quad Cities. Where is Trudy Appleby? Trudy's case has become the Quad Cities' most well-known missing person mystery, and her disappearance has haunted the community for almost 30 years. Her body was never recovered, and law enforcement says they have never stopped searching. Even today, investigators insist this story is still relevant and alive in the hearts and minds of the community. The journey to answers and to justice has been agonizingly long. Trudy grew up in East Moline, Illinois, a typical Midwestern town along the Mississippi River. By all accounts, she was a happy, adventurous 11-year-old girl. Neighbors remember her as outgoing and full of life. The night before she disappeared, Trudy was at a friend's house right next door. She spent the evening rollerblading and joking around, eating hot dogs and mac and cheese with the other children. Those around her recall her smiling and full of innocence. As the evening wound down, Trudy waved goodbye, telling them, "I'll see you tomorrow," a casual farewell that would become tragically poignant. Trudy's family kept every photo and memory of her. Her father, Dennis Appleby, has described his daughter as a spirited child who wasn't afraid of nothing. He believed Trudy's life was just beginning to straighten out when she was snatched away. Her mother, Brenda, had recently been ill, but Trudy's disappearance threw the whole family's world into turmoil. Trudy's Aunt Anita remembers her as a tomboy on the cusp of young womanhood, always chatting about everything in her life. Every birthday and Christmas since 1996 has been overshadowed by her absence. At every candlelight vigil Trudy's relatives have attended, their grief is raw. Her uncle Ray Edelman once stood at a memorial event and demanded that the person responsible come forward. "You know who you are." A heartbreaking plea that spoke for all who loved her. The day she vanished, on the morning of August 21st, 1996, Trudy's world changed forever. Early that day, she was in her family's East Moline home. At some point around 9 a.m., Trudy asked her father if she could go swimming at nearby Campbell's Island with a friend. Her father refused. Later that morning, however, Trudy was seen near her home in East Moline, climbing into the passenger side of an old gray car, driven by a man unknown to investigators. This was the last confirmed sighting of Trudy. She vanished after getting into that vehicle. Curiously, phone records showed she may still have made it as far as Campbell's Island that day. But if so, what happened next is a mystery. The young girl simply never returned home. In that neighborhood, people were stunned. Just hours before, Trudy had seemed like any other normal kid. Her neighbor, Kelly Carlson, remembers Trudy from the night before, riding her rollerblades and grinning over dinner of hot dogs and mac and cheese. As Trudy said goodnight to the group, she cheerfully said, "I'll see you tomorrow." Those words now haunt everyone who heard them. Instead of a new day of summer fun, Trudy's parents would wake up to the unthinkable, an empty room and no daughter. By the afternoon, panic set in. Trudy's father returned home to find her gone and no clue why. He immediately called police. Law enforcement teams flooded the area in response. Search dogs were released on the trails. Divers scoured the river around Campbell's Island, and flashing lights filled the quiet community. Every lead was chased. Neighbors were questioned, cars of that description canvassed, and any witness to the strange morning was sought out. But as the sun set that day, nothing of Trudy had been found. From the very beginning, investigators refused to give up on Trudy's case. The Moline Police Department publicly declared this was not a cold case and mobilized officers around the clock. Detective Michael Griffin, who would later lead the inquiry, stressed that tips kept coming almost daily, showing the community's determination. With Trudy's case, we get tips almost daily, if not every other day, Griffin said, insisting the case stayed alive in the hearts and minds of the community. Investigators worked every angle. They re-interviewed friends, classmates, and family members and scoured phone and bank records from 1996. Flyers with Trudy's photo and billboards asking, "What did you see?" went up throughout the Quad Cities. Federal agencies even offered help as Moline police rebuilt the timeline of that day. Not every lead is fruitful, Griffin later admitted, but it is our duty as police officers to follow up on every lead that we get. We can't give up because it's hard. This is somebody's child. Though many inquiries ran cold, police held firm, vowing they won't forget about her. Yet despite the tireless search, concrete clues were scarce, over days and weeks. Volunteer search parties combed riverbanks and woods. Boat patrols on the river scanned for any sign of Trudy, and state troopers probed calls of suspicious activity on Campbell's Island. Every family photo and note to Trudy was examined for hints. People recalled a light-colored car seen near her house, and authorities traced dozens of vehicles of that description. But each tip led only to disappointment. As the anniversary of her disappearance came and went, investigators remained vigilant, not letting the case go cold even as time passed. But each tip led only to disappointment. As the anniversary of her disappearance came and went, investigators remained vigilant, not letting the case go cold even as time passed. Over the years, police inquiries produced a short list of possible suspects, persons of interest who briefly pointed towards answers, but ultimately proved dead ends. In 2017, they announced that an East Moline resident, William Ed Smith, had emerged as a person of interest in Trudy's disappearance. Neighbors knew Smith as a family acquaintance. To the disappointment of the police and Trudy's family, it was soon revealed that Smith had died in 2014, well before authorities could question him. Any direct story he could have told about that August morning died with him. 3 years later, in 2020, investigators identified 2 more men who might hold pieces of the puzzle. David Whipple, who was married to Smith's daughter, and Jamison Fisher. Whipple was a registered sex offender with his own dark past, but he refused to cooperate with police inquiries. He maintained that he knew nothing about Trudy's disappearance. In the summer of 2022, Whipple himself died of an undisclosed illness, ending any possibility of getting answers from him. Each time a suspect was named, the investigation seemed to stall anew. Every promising name turned into another heartbreaking dead end. Trudy's family was left only with the suspicion that someone, maybe someone they thought they knew, was hiding the truth. For decades, promising leads had all turned cold, but the investigation never stopped. As the 2010s turned into the 2020s, law enforcement redoubled their efforts. In 2017 and 2018, they went back to the scene. Cadaver dogs were brought to Campbell's Island, and a property there was excavated, but no trace of Trudy was found. In 2019, acting on a tip, police seized an old motorboat believed to have been used in the crime. Forensic teams combed the vessel and tested every inch, hoping to find hair, fibers, or DNA. When the boat turned up nothing, the frustration grew, but so did the resolve. That same year, the FBI joined the case, and investigators kept pressing. In 2023, they obtained a search warrant at a home in Kelowna, Illinois. The very property owned by Jamison Fisher, the man identified in 2020. Bulldozers and dig teams swept the backyard looking for Trudy's remains. Fisher had always denied involvement in Trudy's disappearance. Once again, the dig proved fruitless. No bones, no personal items, nothing to identify Trudy. Every effort that failed only increased the determination to keep looking. For the Applebys, each setback was agonizing. For police, each turned clue was one step closer to understanding how the crime unfolded. Finally, after nearly 3 decades, the pieces began to fall into place. Late in the investigation, new forensic methods and persistent detective work produced the evidence needed to move the case forward. In the summer of 2025, authorities announced a shocking breakthrough. They finally had enough to charge a suspect. In August 2025, Moline police and Illinois authorities announced an arrest that stunned the community. Jameson Albert Fisher, age 50, was indicted by a Henry County grand jury for the disappearance and presumed murder of Trudy Appleby. Remarkably, Fisher was already in custody in Iowa at the time, held on unrelated probation violations, when law enforcement revealed the charges against him. According to the indictment, Fisher is charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of concealment of a homicidal death in Trudy's case. Illinois authorities noted that because the alleged crime took place in Henry County, he cannot be charged with kidnapping due to the statute of limitations, but the murder charges move forward. At a press conference announcing the indictment, Moline Police Chief Darren Galt struck a solemn tone. The arrest of Fisher marks a turning point in this mystery that has spanned nearly 3 decades, he said. Chief Galt acknowledged that nothing can bring back young Trudy to her family, but vowed that the relentless pursuit of justice would continue. "We're not going to forget about her," he promised. For the first time since 1996, someone was finally facing justice for Trudy's disappearance. Trudy's family greeted the indictment with a mixture of relief, fear, and unresolved grief. On one hand, the arrest of a prime suspect is the most progress the case has seen in years. It means prosecutors will now put the evidence on trial and perhaps finally lay out the truth of what happened that morning. On the other hand, so much remains unknown. Crucially, Trudy's body has never been found. Without her remains, there are still blanks in the story. Where was she taken? What happened to her after that gray car drove away? Those questions may only be answered in court, if at all. The community remains on edge. Many wonder if justice will truly be served after all this time. As Detective Griffin said years ago, police still hope to find Trudy to give her the proper burial that she and her family deserve. That hope now hangs on a courtroom trial. Meanwhile, family members like Uncle Ray continue to live with the agony of Trudy's loss. At a vigil, he once held back tears as he said, "I am just waiting for you. You know who you are." The implied threat that justice, in one form or another, will find those responsible has echoed through the years. For now, the courtroom will carry the story forward. Fisher's trial will be the community's next turning point. Will his conviction finally close the book, or will more secrets emerge? Only time will tell. This case, it's one of those stories that sticks with you, nearly 3 decades and still so many unanswered questions. Somebody out there knows exactly what happened on that August morning in 1996. Maybe more than one person. And the truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes a lifetime. So now I want to hear from you. What do you think happened to Trudy Appleby? Do you believe the suspect in custody is guilty? Or is there more to the story? Something still hiding in the shadows? Drop your thoughts, theories, and messages of support for Trudy's family in the comments. They've been carrying this weight for almost 30 years, and I know they still read the things people share. And if you're from the Quad Cities or remember when this happened, I'd especially love to hear your memories. Where were you when you first heard Trudy's name? Did you see something back then that maybe didn't seem important at the time? You never know. The smallest detail could be the missing piece. This is one of those cases that reminds us, justice doesn't have an expiration date. The fight to bring Trudy home isn't over.